Some stories should never be told, but we tell them anyway. So, turn off the lights, lock the doors, and listen closely. Welcome to Mortuus Noctirum. Tonight we uncover two unsettling tales. First, the last room, then we'll talk when you're ready. So tell me, if you had to live through one of these stories, which one would you pick and why? Leave your answer in the comments down below. The Last Room. I'm not sure who recommended Hollow Pines to me. It was one of those things, a whisper in a podcast I half heard while falling asleep, or a sidebar ad on some article I can't even remember clicking. The name had an almost clinical neatness to it, like the title of a case study or an experimental drug trial, but something about it stuck. And the more I saw it, online in stray mentions on forums about unconventional therapy retreats, the more it felt like the place was watching me back. I'd been drifting for months, trapped in the kind of fog you only notice when you're already too deep inside it. Work was a blur, friends fewer and further between. Sleep had become a gamble I almost always lost. And inside me, somewhere behind the eyes I avoided in mirrors, was a persistent dull ache, the sense that something was missing or had been misplaced, not just forgotten, but also misplaced. Hollow Pines advertised itself as something rare, a therapeutic labyrinth, where healing wasn't just a conversation, it was an experience, a series of rooms, each one crafted to bring you face to face with your own subconscious. Solve the puzzle, unlock the door, and take one step deeper into your own mind. It sounded ridiculous. New Age snake oil dressed up in psychological jargon. But desperation does funny things to skepticism. I filled out the application, paid the deposit, and found myself driving into the woods 3 weeks later. The road narrowed long before my GPS said it should. Trees leaned inward, branches knitting together overhead until the sky was just a patchwork of grey light. My tires crunched over gravel, and the air felt watched. Like something unseen was crouched just off the road, patient, waiting. The retreat appeared suddenly, almost surgically cut into the tree line. A block of modern architecture, glass walls that reflected nothing, sterile white panels, the faint hum of electricity, audible even inside my car, no sign of other guests. No sound, but the persistent hiss of the wind against the windows. I almost turned around. Almost. But then the automatic doors whispered open, and the woman at the reception desk smiled like she'd been expecting me. "Welcome to Hollow Pines, Ethan," she said. And from that moment, I felt something I couldn't name. Not dread, not exactly, more like inevitability. Dr. Rames met me in his office, a room as minimalist as the building itself. No diplomas on the walls, no family photos or personal touches. Just a desk, 2 chairs, and the faint, clinical smell of antiseptic that clung to the air like cold fog. He was tall and slight, with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. "We approach healing experientially here," he said, folding his fingers together. "You won't be talking about your past, Ethan. You'll be walking through it." I nodded, my throat too dry for words. "Our rooms adapt to you," he continued. "Each one draws from your personal memories, fears, and unresolved experiences. The puzzles will guide you. All you need to do is engage honestly and keep moving forward." "What happens if I can't solve a puzzle?" I asked. Dr. Rames smiled. The kind of smile you might offer a child asking why the sky is blue. "There's always a way forward," he said, "even if you don't like the answer." The orientation was quick, almost dismissive. A laminated badge, a quick tour of the common areas, empty, and then I was left at the entrance to the first room. The door was smooth, featureless, except for a single engraved phrase near the handle. "The only way out is through." I turned the knob, The first room was waiting. I stepped into a kindergarten classroom. It was so precise I could almost believe it had been lifted directly from my past. Sun-faded rugs, tiny plastic chairs, a chalky scent that tugged at memories I couldn't quite reach. Primary colours everywhere, the whole room soaked in an artificial cheerfulness that felt staged. On the low table in the centre sat a pile of toys, mismatched action figures, plastic dinosaurs, a few battered board game pieces. There was no sign, no instructions, but I knew that the puzzle wanted me to put them where they belonged. I sorted them by type at first, then by size. Neither unlocked the door. It wasn't until I arranged them by memory, the order in which I'd lost them, from the blue plastic stegosaurus left at a cousin's house to the action figure snapped in half after a fight with a neighbour kid, that I heard the soft click of a lock releasing. A door appeared where no door had been, not a creaking, haunted house door, just a seamless rectangle that folded itself into existence. Beyond it, another room. The puzzles started simple, but they were never just puzzles. A shape-sorting toy, except the shapes were cut to match the outline of my childhood fears. A face at the window, the dark gap beneath my bed, the flicker of something just out of sight behind the bathroom door. Each piece slid into place with a cold, mechanical finality. Every solved puzzle led to another room, another memory. The rooms grew up with me. My middle school bedroom, all awkward angles and posters peeling from the walls. My first dorm room, smelling of stale beer and microwave burritos. The puzzles started pulling directly from my own history. Rearrange the photos in the order they were taken, find the object that didn't belong. That first day, there were small things, little triggers, forgotten toys, music I hadn't heard since high school. But by the second day, the rooms knew me better than I knew myself. The hallway was empty when I stepped through the fourth door, but it was familiar. Lockers stretched down either side, the metal dented and scratched from decades of adolescent aggression. A dim, fluorescent light flickered overhead, and the air carried the sour scent of unwashed gym clothes and floor cleaner. My high school hallway. The puzzle was taped to my old locker. A printed page from my yearbook, a group photo of my friend's sophomore year. The puzzle was simple. Match names to faces, and the door would open. I hadn't seen that photo in years, but the names came easily, except one. Sarah Gray. She stood between me and my best friend, arm slung casually around my shoulder. Her smile was easy, familiar, but I didn't know her. That smile was too easy, her arm too comfortable, like we'd known each other forever. But I didn't remember her at all. I stepped back, suddenly cold. The fluorescent light flickered. When it came back on, Sarah was smiling just a little wider. I tried to shake it off, told myself the room was just pulling from half-remembered classmates, blending faces I'd forgotten into something new. That was the whole point, right? To dig up what I'd buried? But the feeling wouldn't leave. The door unlocked when I finished the puzzle. The handle was cool, slightly damp under my fingers, and as I turned it, the air shifted. Not just cooler, but thicker, like the room itself was breathing. The next room wasn't a room at all. It was a hallway, narrow, windowless, lit only by that same flickering fluorescent that seemed to follow me everywhere. The walls were the colour of old teeth. There was no puzzle, no clues, just a single door at the end of the hall. I walked, my footsteps muffled by some unseen padding beneath the floor, and every step felt like it took me deeper than I should have been able to go. The door at the end opened into my first apartment, exactly as I remembered it. The stained beige carpet, the cheap IKEA couch missing one leg, the slant to the floor that made my fridge hum louder than it should. Even the air smelled right. A mix of burnt ramen, mildew, and the faintest trace of old beer. The puzzle was on the coffee table. It was a photo album. Not mine, but familiar. The cover was plain, black leather, a little worn at the edges. The first page showed a picture of me smiling with a group of friends at a party I didn't remember. My arm was around Sarah Gray. She wasn't just in the photo, she was at the center of it. Birthday banners hung behind us, the letters blurred like they were shifting even as I stared at them. Everyone else's faces were indistinct, featureless smudges like water-damaged photographs, except for mine. And hers. Her face was too sharp, like it had been edited into memory after the fact. The puzzle was simple. Put the photos in order. I moved through them, hands trembling. A trip to the beach I couldn't recall. Christmas morning in a living room that didn't belong to me. A blurry selfie in a dark parking lot. Her lips at my ear. Her hand on my chest. Every photo had Sarah. Every memory included her. And none of them were real. That night, during my scheduled debrief with Dr. Rains, I brought up the photos. My skin felt tight, like it was shrinking around me, but I forced my voice to stay calm. "Who's Sarah Gray?" I asked. Dr. Rains gave me that same soft smile. "Memory is fluid," he said. "This process helps you reconnect with the memories you've buried, even the ones you resist. But I don't know her." "Are you sure?" The way he said it made my stomach twist, like he knew something I didn't, or worse, like he knew I was lying to myself. "She's in every room," I said. "Every puzzle." "That's good," he said. "It means you're getting close." "To what?" He just smiled. I left his office with my head pounding and my palms damp, the antiseptic stench sticking to the back of my throat like old cough syrup. The next few rooms stopped pretending to be therapeutic. They were invasive, surgical. I stepped into a living room that wasn't mine but knew me anyway. A television was playing old home videos, grainy footage of my childhood birthdays, school plays, holidays where my parents smiled through gritted teeth. Sarah was in those videos too, a girl at the edge of the frame, sometimes older, sometimes younger, always just there, half invisible at first, but more prominent each time. The puzzle was to spot her, to see what I'd been pretending not to see. In the final video, the camera zoomed in on a patch of forest, lit only by the camera's grainy spotlight. A figure stood at the edge of a freshly dug hole, muddy hands, wild eyes. It was me. The puzzle was the memory itself. The door only unlocked when I whispered her name. I started dreaming about dirt. Cold, wet earth pressing against my palms, my fingernails breaking as I scraped at it. My hands weren't mine in the dreams. They were younger, thinner, trembling. My breath came in shallow bursts, and above me the sky was just a smear of grey through the trees. In the dreams, there was always a shape in the hole, long, still. The dirt wouldn't cover it no matter how hard I pressed. I woke with my hands clenched so tight my nails left half moons in my palms. The final hallway was waiting. There were no puzzles anymore, no toys or photos or home videos. Just a corridor with walls the color of bruised flesh, a door at the end standing slightly ajar. The fluorescent hum followed me, lower now, like something muttering beneath its breath. I walked. The floor was soft, not carpet, soil. The air smelled damp, the faint antiseptic overpowered by the scent of earth. The door opened on its own. The last room wasn't a room, it was a burial site. The walls were dirt studded with broken roots and damp stones. A single light bulb swung overhead, casting shadows that shifted unnaturally, bending into shapes they shouldn't have been able to make. In the center of the room was a bed. The sheets were damp, the air was thick, and the figure sitting up from beneath the covers was Sarah Gray. Her skin was pale, grey at the edges, her fingers curled around something silver. A ring. My wedding ring. "You left me here," she whispered. Her voice was wet, thick with dirt. "You buried me, Ethan." Her feet touched the soil, and every step left a dark imprint, damp and heavy. I tried to back away, but the walls closed in, the dirt pressing against my shoulders, crumbling beneath my fingertips. "This is the last room," she said. Her mouth was smiling, her eyes were not. Her feet made no sound as they crossed the dirt floor, just the faintest, wet shift of earth giving way beneath her weight. Her dress hung loose around her, the fabric stained dark at the hem. It was the kind of dress that might have once been white, a wedding gown perhaps, but it had been too long underground. Long enough for the soil to seep in, for the earth to claim it. I wanted to run, but there was no door anymore. The hallway I'd come through was gone, collapsed into a wall of solid dirt. The air was dense, not just with the scent of earth and rot, but with something else. Something like metal, sharp and tangy at the back of my throat. My skin prickled, a cold sweat blooming along my spine. Sarah stood just a few feet away, her head tilted slightly to one side, hair hanging in damp, dark clumps around her face. Her eyes were dull, the white streaked with brown veins, but there was a sharpness beneath the rot, a focus, a memory coming back to life. "Do you remember yet?" she whispered. Her voice sounded like it had been dragged through the ground with her. I shook my head, words stuck somewhere deep in my throat. The room shifted. It wasn't a burial site anymore. It was my bedroom. The one I'd had in my 20s, when I lived alone and spent most nights half drunk, half asleep. The bed was the same, the comforter bunched at the foot, the floor littered with old clothes and empty bottles. But the walls were still dirt, the ceiling was still roots and damp stone. Sarah stood in the doorway, blocking the only exit. "You never told them about me," she said softly. "You buried me, but you never told them." "I didn't," I started, but my own voice sounded strange, smaller, less certain. She took a step closer. "Then why do you know my name?" she asked. There was a puzzle here. I could feel it, not laid out in pieces or clues, but in my own mind. The room was a puzzle. The house was a puzzle. Every corridor, every door, every puzzle I'd solved had been leading here, to this moment, to her. The air pressed tighter around me. The walls felt closer, the weight of earth leaning in from all sides. I could hear it, the sound of dirt shifting, of something crawling just beyond sight. "Do you remember the first time you saw me?" Sarah asked. Her voice was quieter now, not a whisper, but something softer, sadder. The images flickered. Not in front of me, but inside me. A party, a bonfire, the woods at the edge of some half-forgotten field. I was drunk, leaning against a tree, the night air too cold for September. Someone had handed me a cigarette, though I didn't smoke. And Sarah standing too close, her smile too wide, her laugh too loud. We'd talked for hours, walked deeper into the woods together, away from the others, away from witnesses. My stomach clenched. "I didn't," I started again, but Sarah shook her head. "You did," she said. "You always did." The walls flickered again, from bedroom to dirt to something in between. The room was becoming less a space and more a memory. The air was thick with it, the weight of all the things I had buried, including her. I saw my hands, younger, trembling, covered in mud. The shovel was too heavy for me, the handle slick with sweat. My breath came fast and shallow, the way it does when you're running or panicking or both. Sarah lay at my feet. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't seeing me. "You told yourself it was an accident," she said, "that you didn't mean to push me." The memory skipped, like a glitching tape, my hands around her throat, her nails clawing at my wrists, her foot slipping on wet leaves, the sickening crack of her skull against the rock. "I didn't mean to," I whispered. But even I didn't believe it. There was never a retreat, no hollow pines, no therapy labyrinth. The entire thing, every room, every puzzle, was built for me, a custom maze designed to lead me here, to peel back the layers of my memory until I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Until I confessed. Sarah's lips curled into something like a smile. "But you didn't mean to bury me either," she said. "Did you?" My hands ached. I could feel the shovel again, the weight of it vibrating up my arms as I drove it into the earth. I could smell the wet dirt, the rot of leaves, the sharp tang of my own fear sweat. "You were supposed to stay buried," I shouted. She took another step closer. "I did," she said, "but you couldn't leave me there." The walls weren't walls anymore. They were like screens. Every angle of the room flickered with grainy surveillance footage. All of it of me, digging, crying, drinking alone in my apartment, staring at my reflection in dark windows, seeing Sarah's face just over my shoulder. They had been watching me for years. Every time I forgot her, they reminded me. Every time I buried her deeper, they dug her back up. And now, there was nowhere left to hide. "You built this," Sarah said, her voice calm now. "Every puzzle, every door." She reached up, the ring in her hand glinting in the flickering light. "This is yours," she said. I stepped back, but the room was too small. My back hit the wall, but it was all dirt now. Her fingers brushed mine, cold, slick with mud. She slid the ring onto my finger, and the weight of it was unbearable. The walls shuddered, the earth trembled, the room collapsed inward, folding around us like a closing fist. The weight of the dirt pressed against my spine, damp and cold, clinging to the fabric of my shirt like fingers. My skin prickled, and with every shallow breath, the scent of wet earth, rotting leaves, and the faint antiseptic tang filled my nose. Sarah's hand was still resting over mine, fingers curled gently around my wrist, her nails dark with soil. The silver ring sat cold and final on my finger, fitting perfectly, as though I'd never taken it off. The room's walls were no longer just dirt. They were breathing. With each pulse, the soil shifted inward, the roots trembling like veins beneath skin, tightening the space inch by inch. My own breath grew faster, heart hammering against my ribs, but Sarah was utterly still, her head tilted in quiet curiosity, like she was watching an insect trapped under glass. "I don't want this," I whispered. Her brow creased. Not in anger, but in something more like pity. "Neither did I," she said. Her voice was quieter now, thin and worn, a whisper carried through the ground itself. "You made me part of you," she continued. "Every step you took away from that night, every drink, every lie, it all built this place." I shook my head, dirt dislodging from the wall behind me, showering down onto my shoulders. My fingers worked at the ring, but it wouldn't budge. It felt fused to my skin, like it had grown there. "You said this was a retreat," I said, voice shaking. "A therapy program. This was supposed to help." "It is helping," Sarah said softly. The walls contracted again. I didn't pass out, but something inside me folded. I must have fallen, knees hitting the wet earth, my head slumping forward. When I opened my eyes, the dirt room was gone. I was in my childhood living room. The old brown couch was there, the scratchy fabric rubbed thin in the middle. The television was on, playing static, but something was faintly visible beneath the flicker, a shape moving slowly, like it was trapped behind the glass. The walls were too clean, too smooth. The air felt thin, like I was breathing through cotton. Sarah sat on the couch, her dirty dress leaving dark stains on the upholstery. She was younger here, the way I first saw her at that party, before her skin turned grey and her nails filled with dirt. "Remember this?" she asked, gesturing at the TV. I did. It was a VHS tape, one of those cheap camcorder reels my parents had filled with birthdays and Christmas mornings. But the tape was wrong now. The sound was missing, and in its place was a low hum, the same frequency as those buzzing fluorescent lights in every room before. The video cut from my 7th birthday to something I couldn't place. A forest, a hole, a body. I scrambled back from the screen, my shoulder slamming into the living room wall, and the wallpaper peeled away beneath my touch, revealing not drywall but more dirt. Damp, pulsing dirt. "You don't get to run," Sarah said. Her voice was gentle. "It's time to remember." The footage flickered, not on the screen, but inside my skull. The party, the woods, the argument. It hadn't been a fight, not at first. We'd wandered away from the others, the noise of the bonfire swallowed by the dark. She was laughing, teasing me about something I'd already forgotten. I remembered the way the firelight caught in her hair, the way her breath fogged the air between us. We kissed. Then she pulled back. Then she said something I didn't want to hear. It wasn't supposed to go like that. The argument was quick, a sudden burst of heat in the cold dark. I had reached for her wrist, too fast, too hard, and she stumbled back, foot slipping on wet leaves, her head snapping against a low rock. She'd gone so still, cold, lifeless. Immediately I'd gone pale. My hands remembered the dirt before my mind did. The shallow scrape of nails pulling at the earth, fingers trembling with panic and adrenaline. I buried her before her body even cooled. I told myself it was an accident, but the look in her eyes before she fell said otherwise. The walls of the living room folded back into the dirt corridor, the memory bleeding into the present until I couldn't tell which was which. The cameras were there again. Every angle, every corner, blinking red lights like tiny, patient eyes, recording every breath, every flinch. "This isn't therapy," I said. "No," Sarah said. "It's justice." Her voice came from behind me. I spun, but she wasn't there. She was everywhere. The dirt walls whispered her name, the soil rippling with her breath. She had become the house, the labyrinth, the puzzle itself. "You built this," she said again, voice rising like wind through trees. "With every lie, every time you told yourself I wasn't real, every time you smiled at someone new like I wasn't, rotting under your feet." I fell to my knees, the damp earth soaking through my jeans. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Are you?" Sarah shouted, demanding my honesty. The ring on my finger pulsed, a heartbeat of cold metal fused to skin. No matter how hard I pulled, it wouldn't come off. The final door opened without a sound. Beyond it was no room, no hallway, no familiar scene drawn from my past. Just the woods. The very same woods where I buried her. The air was damp and cold, mist curling low to the ground, swallowing my feet with every step. The dirt was loose, freshly disturbed, the same spot I remembered, down to the twisted tree root jutting from the ground like a beckoning finger. She stood beside the hole, whole but not alive. "This is the last room," she said. Her face was calm. Her skin was clean again, no mud, no blood, no rot. but her eyes were wrong, too wide, too knowing. I stepped toward her, though I didn't want to. The cameras were still there, invisible now, but I felt them, recording this final act, documenting the moment where I remembered, where I confessed, not to the world, but to myself. "I didn't mean to," I said. She reached out, fingers brushing mine. The earth yawned open. I fell. The ground gave way without warning. One moment my feet were on solid earth, the next I was tumbling, dirt and roots rushing past me in a blur of damp darkness. My hands clawed at the sides of the hole, but the soil crumbled under my grip. Too soft, too slick. I didn't fall far. The ground caught me like a cupped hand, slamming the breath from my lungs. The space was impossibly small. A coffin-sized void lined with damp earth, the scent of rotting leaves pressed tight against my face. The light from above was gone. The only glow came from my own hand, the ring. It pulsed faintly. Silver light tracing lines beneath my skin, veins lighting up with its cold glow. Each pulse seemed to sync with my heartbeat, the rhythm of it growing louder, heavier, until it was all I could hear. Above me, Sarah leaned over the edge of the hole. Her face was blank, unreadable, not angry, not vengeful, just waiting. "This is where you left me," she said, voice soft as sifting dirt. "You filled it in, packed it down, left me here, alone in the dark." I couldn't answer, and the dirt was shifting beneath me, pressing against my sides, creeping up my legs like it was alive. "No one found me," she said. Her face slipped out of view as dirt poured down from above, filling the space between us, closing the distance. No one even knew to look. The soil covered my ankles, my knees, my hips. "Because you forgot," she whispered. The dirt swallowed my chest, pressing against my ribs, squeezing the breath from my lungs. It was cold, not just from the earth itself, but from something deeper, a cold that reached inside me, curling around my bones. "You forgot me," she said, and then the dirt filled my mouth. I woke to light, blinding, sterile, fluorescent light. The hole was gone. The woods were gone. I was lying on my back in a small, featureless room, the floor and walls smooth white plastic, seamless, the kind of space where nothing could hide. The only door was built into the wall, flush with the surface, no handle, no frame. The only sound was my breathing, and the slow, steady beep of a heart monitor. I sat up, my body aching, dirt still clinging to my skin, crusted beneath my fingernails. My clothes were torn, damp with mud. The silver ring still sat on my finger, its light faint but persistent. I wasn't alone. Sarah stood in the corner, no longer rotting, no longer cold. She looked exactly as she had the night we met, bright-eyed, smiling, hair catching the light in soft waves. Except her smile didn't reach her eyes. There was something hollow there, something deep and unfinished. "This is the last room," she said. Her voice was no longer a whisper, it was clear, sharp. "Where are we?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "The place you built," she said. "The place your mind made so you wouldn't have to remember. But you do now." I shook my head, throat dry. "I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to." "You don't have to say it," she said. "I know." The walls flickered. For a moment they were dirt again, tree roots writhing through the walls like veins, the air thick with earth and rot. Then they were plastic again, sterile, white, seamless. "It's not just me who's been watching," Sarah said. She raised her hand. The walls shimmered. And all at once, they weren't walls at all. They were screens. The screens showed me. Every room, every puzzle, every moment I thought I was alone. They had all been recorded. Angles I hadn't seen, moments I'd forgotten. Every panicked breath, every trembling hand, every time I spoke her name under my breath. And behind me, always just behind me, was Sarah. In some rooms she was a shadow at the edge of the frame. In others her face filled the screen, her eyes locked on me even when I wasn't looking at her. There were other screens too, ones I didn't understand at first, surveillance footage from years ago. My old apartment, my office, bars I used to drink at, the gas station near my old house, grainy black and white clips stitched together like a documentary of my life, except Sarah was in those too, always watching. "You think you only buried me that night," she said softly, "but you've been burying me every day since." The screens blinked out. The room was silent. And then the door opened. There was no hallway beyond the door, just woods. The same woods where it happened. The mist curled low to the ground, the air thick with moisture, the dirt soft and slick beneath my bare feet. I walked without thinking, the path pulling me forward, the scent of damp leaves and decaying earth filling my lungs. The hole was there, open, waiting. Sarah stood beside it. "Do you remember?" she asked. I nodded. "Say it!" she screamed. My throat closed, but the words were there, bitter and heavy. "I killed you," I said. The ground shuddered. "Then I buried you." The mist curled tighter around my legs. "And," I swallowed hard, "and I forgot you." Sarah smiled, but it wasn't a cruel smile. It was almost tender. "Not anymore," she said. The earth moved under my feet, not crumbling but folding, like it was pulling me down by degrees. My legs sank, dirt curling around my ankles, knees, thighs. "This is the last room," Sarah said again. I reached for her hand, not to pull her into the earth with me, but to hold on. To feel something human before the earth swallowed me whole. Her fingers were warm. She squeezed my hand. "Don't fight it," she whispered. "It's time." I sank. The earth closed over my waist, my chest, my shoulders. I could still see her face, haloed by mist, framed by dark hair. She wasn't smiling anymore. "You won't forget again," she said. The dirt covered my mouth, my nose, my eyes. They found me 3 days later, wandering at the edge of the woods, barefoot, my clothes torn and caked with mud. My nails were broken, fingers raw, like I'd been digging with my hands. I wasn't buried anymore. Did I crawl my way out? I asked myself. Or was I not buried at all? I couldn't speak. Not at first. I just kept whispering her name. Sarah Gray. There was no record of hollow pines, no retreat, no Dr. Rains, just a shallow grave, long collapsed, half buried beneath moss and leaves. They found bones inside, small, broken, and the remnants of a dress too stained with soil to tell what color it had been. In my pocket they found a silver ring, the last piece of the puzzle. And though they tried to move me forward, to heal me, I know the truth. There's no healing. There's no way out. Because the last room isn't a place. It's me. We'll talk when you're ready. When I first opened my eyes, all I saw was white. A stark, sterile whiteness lit by muted sunlight filtering through grey-tinted windows. For a moment, panic tightened in my chest, the antiseptic smell thick in my throat. My heart began to race, a drumbeat of confusion echoing through my bones. Where was I? Then a voice came, soft and calming, familiar yet elusive, like an old lullaby half forgotten. Easy, Claire. You're safe now. Just breathe. The gentle whisper brushed against my ear, close enough that I felt the warmth of breath ripple across my skin. I tried to turn my head, searching for whoever was speaking, but pain bloomed sharply down my neck and spine, pinning me back against the stiff mattress. Who? My voice scraped out dry and weak, barely audible even to myself. Shh, the voice soothed, velvet soft and motherly. You don't need to speak yet. I'm here. We'll talk when you're ready. Slowly, fragments of memory began to drift back, broken shards that cut as they settled into place. The screech of tires, metal folding like paper, glass shattering like starlight, the sickening silence afterward, broken only by the distant wail of sirens. Panic swelled again, and my breathing quickened, harsh and uneven. Calm, Claire. Breathe with me. The voice was insistent but gentle, guiding me with steady, rhythmic breaths until my pulse slowed, matching its quiet pace. I listened carefully, holding on to the calm it offered, and gradually the room around me became clearer. I was in a hospital, nor something more comfortable, something designed to soothe rather than merely treat. The walls were soft blue-grey, decorated with carefully neutral prints of abstract shapes that mimicked clouds or gentle waves. Tubes and wires ran discreetly beneath sheets, connected to polished equipment that hummed quietly, keeping watch over me. A recovery center. Memories flickered back. A winding road, headlights glaring, the screech of metal twisting. The accident. My breath caught again, a spike of remembered terror stabbing through me, but immediately the voice was there, whispering reassuringly, reminding me I was safe, alive. You were lucky, Claire, it murmured, close enough now that I imagined feeling its warm breath brushing against my ear. Very lucky indeed. The intimacy of its tone comforted me, even as I struggled to place the voice's origin. Was it coming from the implant they had described before the surgery? Experimental technology meant to reconnect trauma survivors to their inner selves, promoting healing by echoing their subconscious. That must be it. It explained the strange intimacy, the eerie closeness of something speaking from within my own skull. As my breathing steadied fully, exhaustion crept in like a tide. My eyelids grew heavy, sleep dragging me under gently. Rest now, the voice murmured lovingly. We have plenty of time. The next day, my first session with Dr. Anders began. His smile was practiced, clinical warmth framed by a professional detachment that didn't quite reach his eyes. The grey daylight slipping through the large windows did little to soften the stark clinical lines of the room. Dr. Lanning, a handsome man with prematurely silver-streaked hair, held a clipboard casually, leaning against a polished wooden desk. "How are you feeling today, Claire?" he asked warmly, though his gaze was analytical, watching my reaction carefully. "I feel tired, mostly," I admitted softly, hesitantly shifting on the padded chair. The ache in my body had faded, dulled to a distant hum beneath heavy layers of medication. He nodded slowly. "Understandable after what you've been through. Memory often returns slowly after trauma. Do you recall anything new?" I hesitated, glancing toward the floor. "Just flashes, the accident, nothing clear." Dr. Lanning nodded sympathetically, jotting something down. "That's normal. Memories will resurface gradually. The implant will help you process trauma as it arises." "The implant," I repeated quietly, touching my temple unconsciously. "Yes," he continued, reassuring yet professional. "It's designed to support emotional recovery, essentially amplifying your subconscious guidance to aid your conscious mind." "Does it speak?" I asked hesitantly, half embarrassed at the question. He smiled faintly. "Many describe it that way, yes. It's designed to echo your inner thoughts, prompting your mind toward emotional equilibrium. Why, are you finding it distracting?" "No," I lied quickly, afraid he'd remove it if I admitted otherwise. It helps. Keeps me calm. Good. Dr. Lanning smiled, looking relieved. You've responded exceptionally well so far. We'll take things slowly. Remember, this is a journey, Claire. Be patient with yourself. I nodded again, but inside a small seed of doubt began to sprout. If this voice echoed my subconscious, why didn't it sound exactly like me? It spoke with a calm assurance, a quiet confidence I couldn't recognize in myself. Still, it was comforting. At least, it had been. At first. Later that evening, in the quiet solitude of my room, shadows stretched lazily across sterile walls as twilight faded into a deeper, greyer dusk. The voice returned, gentle at first, encouraging me to rest, relax, reminding me of small joys, soft grass under bare feet, summer afternoons, and laughter from a time before pain. Then, subtly, the tone shifted. You've always been so strong, Claire. Even as a child, when you hid that broken doll beneath your mattress rather than admit you'd shattered it. You remember, don't you? I froze, breath held tight in my chest. How could the implant know that? I'd never spoken that memory aloud, not even to my parents, not even in therapy. You were 7, it continued warmly, too warmly, intimacy deepening into something uncomfortable, almost suffocating. You cried for hours under your blankets, convinced you'd broken something sacred, but no one ever found out, did they? Stop. My voice trembled, barely above a whisper. I pressed fingers to my temple, as if that could silence it. The voice chuckled softly, amused. Claire, I know everything about you. Isn't that comforting? You're never alone. I shivered, a deep unease blossoming in my gut. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Who are you? I whispered to the empty room, darkness pressing closer now, air thickening like warm breath against my ear. I'm you, Claire, it murmured tenderly. And I'm everything you've ever hidden, everything you deny. But don't worry, we'll explore it all together. The voice faded, leaving only silence punctuated by my ragged breathing and the soft hum of unseen machines. I lay awake for hours, staring into the gloom, haunted by the realization that whatever whispered from inside my skull wasn't just an implant. It was something far more invasive, something that knew me more intimately than anyone ever could, or ever should. And worst of all, it felt like it was smiling. The days in the recovery center blurred together, each as indistinguishable as the grey haze outside my window. Despite my unease, the voice continued, guiding me steadily through each step of healing. It reminded me when to breathe, when to rest, and even gently nudged me into recalling snippets of my past, small, safe memories at first. Yet each new recollection seemed meticulously selected, arranged in a perfect sequence like puzzle pieces snapping together. I began to dread those quiet, introspective moments, fearful of what might surface next. During a particularly exhausting afternoon, after an intense physical therapy session that left my body aching, I lay quietly in bed, eyes closed. The voice hummed gently in my ear, speaking softly, insistently, coaxing images forth like old photographs rising through murky water. Do you remember the lake, Claire? The one behind your grandfather's cabin? The memory surfaced instantly. Cold mud between my toes, the earthy scent of pine needles, sunlight fractured through tree branches. How could I not remember? But my heart stuttered when the voice continued, its tone disturbingly precise. You went there alone one evening. No one saw you sneak away. You stood at the edge of the dock, toes curled around splintered wood, peering into dark water. You were afraid, but curious. You knew it was deep, bottomless, a place where things disappeared. A chill skittered down my spine. My eyes darted around the sterile, dimly lit room, half expecting someone else to be there watching. But there was only silence and the oppressive scent of hospital antiseptic lingering in the air. "You never told anyone you slipped, did you?" the voice asked softly. "Or how for a moment you went under, gasping, thrashing beneath the surface? You saw something down there, Claire. Something that saw you too." "Stop it," I snapped suddenly, panic bubbling sharply. My voice echoed faintly off the blank walls, thin and powerless. "How can you know these things?" "Because I've always been here," it whispered gently, almost lovingly. "With you, within you, just waiting to speak." My skin prickled with goosebumps. The intimacy of its words felt invasive now, suffocating. I shook my head sharply, desperately, as though I could dislodge it from my skull. "You're not real," I hissed defiantly. "Oh, Claire," it murmured with a sigh. "You know better." The room felt smaller, air heavier with every breath. The voice quieted but did not fade completely. It lingered there, breathing softly in my ear, a faint, unseen presence, crowding too close. Sleep became elusive, a battle against shadows and whispers as I struggled to silence my racing thoughts. Each day at the facility blurred into the next, bright grey filtered daylight seeping through the large windows offering little comfort. Sessions with Dr. Lanning continued, but I withheld the truth, fearing his disbelief, or worse, confirmation that my mind had fractured. Yet soon, silence became far worse than the voice itself. At least when it spoke, I knew I wasn't alone. Days passed until I couldn't bear the uncertainty anymore. One afternoon, during therapy, I finally gathered the courage to speak openly with Dr. Lanning. He listened attentively, nodding occasionally, his brows knitted thoughtfully. "I think the implant might be malfunctioning," I confessed hesitantly. "It's telling me things it shouldn't know." Dr. Lanning paused, a shadow briefly crossing his usually calm expression. "Claire, the implant only amplifies your subconscious. Sometimes trauma surfaces through vivid memories or even imagined details. It's the mind's way of processing." "No," I insisted, frustration rising. "These aren't memories I've forgotten. They're things I've literally never told anyone, ever." He studied me carefully, sympathy and skepticism mingling behind his eyes. "The human mind is complicated, Claire, especially after trauma. The implant merely reflects." "Reflects what?" My voice rose in desperation. "These aren't things I'd ever want to remember, much less imagine." Dr. Lanning took a breath, clearly searching for words that might calm me. "We'll adjust the implant. Sometimes it requires recalibration. It's still experimental, remember?" I slumped back, feeling more alone than ever. He didn't believe me, not truly, and deep down, I couldn't blame him. Even I questioned my sanity now. Maybe the voice was right. Maybe we'd talk when I was ready. That night, I lay awake, staring into the soft shadows of the room. The voice remained silent for once, yet the absence felt heavier, more unnerving than its presence ever had. The emptiness seemed charged, waiting, as though it held its breath alongside me, expectant, patient. I didn't want to think about it anymore, didn't want to wonder what it might say next. But as exhaustion finally began to drag me down, a whisper returned, gentle but edged with a new undertone, something sharp beneath its usual warmth. "Claire, do you want to know a secret?" I flinched involuntarily. "Please leave me alone." "Oh, but I can't," it murmured sweetly, a hint of sorrow coloring its voice. "Not when you're so close to seeing, not when you've finally begun to understand." My blood ran cold. "Seeing what?" "The truth," it said gently, almost lovingly, "about everyone here. About why you're really alive." "I don't want to. You don't have a choice anymore, Claire." Its words were tender but threaded with steel. "You invited me in. Don't you see? When you were trapped in the dark between life and death, you reached out. I was waiting there, always waiting." Fear coiled tightly in my gut. "Waiting? What are you?" "Something ancient," it whispered softly, its breath once again warm against my ear, intimate, suffocating, something patient. "I chose you, Claire. You're special. You're mine." My chest constricted painfully. "What do you want?" It laughed softly, a cold, amused sound that made my blood run ice cold. "Everything, Claire, but we'll talk about that soon enough. Rest now." Despite my fear, exhaustion clawed at me, dragging me down into a fitful sleep filled with half-remembered dreams, shattered glass, whispered secrets, and something dark lurking just out of sight. When morning came, I awoke trembling, dread pooling in my stomach. The voice was quiet, patient, biding its time, but I knew with terrifying certainty, whatever it was, it no longer sought conversation alone. It wanted something more, something I feared I was powerless to stop. In the days that followed, my fascination with the woman in the bed beside mine grew into a grim obsession. She lay utterly motionless, pale beneath the pristine white sheets, wires and tubes connecting her lifeless form to a chorus of softly humming machines. Nurses came and went quietly, their practiced indifference only fueling my anxiety. Each time they checked her vitals, a shadow of pity flickered across their faces before quickly vanishing into professional neutrality. I began to dread that room, yet I couldn't tear my eyes away from her. It was late evening, the room bathed in muted twilight when the voice returned, sliding seamlessly into my thoughts, softer than before, but somehow more invasive. It felt closer, whispering from somewhere impossibly near, warm breath brushing the sensitive skin just behind my ear. "You're curious about her, aren't you, Claire?" it murmured gently, knowing exactly what consumed my mind. My heart quickened, unease creeping up my spine. "I don't want to hear it," I whispered sharply, glancing around anxiously, certain now that someone must be playing a cruel trick. But I was alone. Only sterile shadows dancing slowly across the stark, window-lit walls. "She sleeps because waking up would be so much worse," the voice continued soothingly, ignoring my plea. "Her dreams are quiet, empty places, safe, but reality holds too much pain, and it isn't the accident she fears. No, it's what she brought back with her." "What do you mean?" I murmured, my voice strained with dread, heart thumping painfully in my chest. "Brought back?" "You know what I mean, Claire." The voice paused, a smile evident in its tender tone. "Like you did." Ice slid down my spine, spreading through my limbs. I glanced toward the woman, watching the faint rise and fall of her chest, wondering if she could hear the voice, too. Did she also carry a darkness within her, a companion whispering secrets and soothing traumas? Was this quiet, endless sleep her desperate escape? A sudden spike of anxiety jolted through me, nausea rising in my throat. I clenched the sheets, knuckles turning bone white. The implant was supposed to heal trauma, not trap me within it. The voice murmured gently, sensing my panic before it erupted. "Shh, Claire, you're safe. As long as you listen, nothing can hurt you. I'm protecting you." "From what?" I whispered back sharply, startling myself at how clearly I'd addressed it aloud. My gaze darted around nervously, half expecting to find nurses hovering outside the door, watching and listening. But no one was there, just me, the silent woman, and whatever presence inhabited my mind, gently breathing warmth against my ear, speaking with patient authority. From yourself, it answered calmly, like a mother reassuring a frightened child. From your fear, your doubts, I am your strength now. The voice's promise of protection felt suffocating rather than comforting, like invisible hands softly closing around my throat. That night, sleep evaded me again. I lay awake, unable to escape the constant feeling that I was being watched, not from outside, but from deep within. Days blurred into each other, each one harder than the last. The voice began slipping into my consciousness with alarming frequency, asserting itself whenever it pleased, commenting on my smallest thoughts, my hidden fears, my fleeting moments of doubt. I was losing control, not of my healing body, but of my very mind, and it terrified me. As I sat by the window one grey afternoon, gazing out at the lifeless sky beyond, the voice returned abruptly, tinged with a strange excitement. You want to know about the nurse, don't you? Her name is Evelyn, and she hates you, Claire. My heart skipped a beat, my pulse hammering faster. Why would she hate me? Because you're alive, and her daughter isn't. It's unfair, don't you think? Her daughter died right here, in this very facility. Evelyn resents that you survived your crash when her daughter did not. Sometimes, late at night, she imagines what it would feel like to hurt you. Nausea swept through me, cold and sharp. I remembered Evelyn's gaze, always professional, but occasionally lingering a fraction too long, her fingers tightening slightly around my wrist when she checked my pulse. It had seemed harmless before, but now the voice had given shape to my fears. "You're lying," I muttered desperately, my stomach tightening further. "You're just in my head. You can't possibly know that." "Oh, but I do, Claire. I know because I hear her thoughts too. I know every dark desire hidden behind those smiling faces. The doctor who doubts himself. Evelyn who dreams of hurting someone, anyone, just to feel powerful. And I know you, Claire, better than you know yourself." A wave of dread swelled in my chest, making it hard to breathe. I tried to drown out the voice, pressing my hands against my ears, but its whispers continued from deep inside my skull, relentless, impossible to silence. "Stop," I pleaded softly, voice trembling. "Please, stop this." But it ignored me, growing more insistent, revealing darker truths. "Your doctor is hiding things too, Claire. He blames himself for every death in this place. It's why he's so invested in you. You're his last chance to redeem himself. But you're slipping away and he knows it." "No," I gasped, shaking my head desperately. "It's not true." "Isn't it?" The voice laughed softly, almost lovingly, pressing even closer. "They can't help you like I can. They're blind, Claire, stumbling around in the dark, unable to see what's truly here. But you and I, we're connected. You need me." "Leave me alone," I whispered again, weaker this time, trembling beneath the weight of hopelessness. The boundaries between my thoughts and its words were dissolving. I felt invaded, violated. My own thoughts were no longer private. They were merely echoes for the voice to exploit. "You invited me," it murmured, a note of possessiveness threading through its soothing tone. "In the dark place between life and death, you begged someone, anyone, to save you. And I did. I found you, Claire. You chose me." My vision blurred with tears. Was it true? Had I unknowingly opened a door in desperation, inviting something ancient and hungry inside, something waiting eagerly for someone like me? Fragile, broken, and vulnerable. "Please," I whispered, desperation edging into my voice, my breath coming in sharp, shallow gasps. "Please, just leave me alone." "I can't," it purred, gentle and suffocating at once. "You're mine now. We'll talk again soon, when you're ready to truly listen." The room darkened around me, the suffocating intimacy tightening until I felt as though I might drown in it. I lay there helplessly, knowing I was losing control, piece by precious piece, unable to stop it. Because the voice wasn't just speaking to me anymore, it was becoming me. Sleep became something distant, unreachable, replaced by relentless hours spent staring at the sterile ceiling above. The voice had grown quieter again, its whispers receding like a tide, but I knew it hadn't gone far. It lurked just beyond the edge of consciousness, waiting patiently for the right moment. Without it, a strange emptiness had settled in, a hollowness more terrifying than its presence had ever been. Desperate to regain control, I tried to focus on my daily routines, the therapy sessions, the gentle rehabilitation exercises, and forced polite conversations with nurses who treated me like fragile glass. Yet behind their careful smiles, I saw shadows of something darker. I couldn't forget what the voice had whispered about Evelyn, the nurse who hated me. Her lingering gaze now felt cold, invasive, her smile's hollow masks barely hiding contempt. One evening, as twilight painted the walls in grim shades of grey, I heard hushed voices just beyond my door. I strained to listen, senses heightened by anxiety. "She's declining, Doctor." Evelyn's sharp whisper was unmistakable. Her paranoia is growing, just like the others. Dr. Lanning's voice was low, cautious. "Keep observing. The implant sometimes triggers unexpected reactions. She might just need adjustments." "And if adjustments don't work?" Evelyn snapped quietly, venom barely hidden beneath her professional tone. "We both know where this ends." My blood turned cold. I pressed myself deeper into the bed, breath tight in my throat, every muscle rigid. Had they done this before? What had happened to the others who hadn't responded well? The voice gently broke through my panic, affectionate but mocking, murmuring directly into my ear. "See, Claire, they can't help you. They're afraid of you. Afraid of what you'll uncover, afraid of what you already know." "How could you possibly know what they're thinking?" I hissed through clenched teeth, desperate not to be overheard. "How do you know anything at all?" The voice chuckled softly, silk and shadows in equal measure. "Because I hear everything, Claire. I'm in their heads too, lingering in the dark corners of their minds where fear and shame fester, just as I'm in yours." A shudder crawled down my spine. "Please," I whispered helplessly, clutching my trembling hands together beneath the sheets. "Please just go away. I'm part of you now." It breathed gently, warmly, as though offering comfort. "You're never alone." Despair twisted painfully in my chest. No matter how hard I tried, the voice had rooted itself deep within me, wrapping its tendrils around my thoughts, my fears, my secrets. Was there really nowhere left to hide? That night, I stayed awake, eyes wide open in the suffocating darkness, listening to distant footsteps echoing through the halls and wondering if they'd come for me next. The facility no longer felt safe. It felt like a polished prison, masking horrors I couldn't begin to fathom. The voice remained quiet, letting me simmer in the weight of uncertainty. I realized then it didn't need to speak. It already had all the power it required. My thoughts belonged to it, and, soon enough, my body would too. Driven by desperation, I began to resist the calming treatments and soothing platitudes, fighting through the constant fog of medication to regain control of my mind. Late one night, when the facility lay hushed and dim, I slipped out of my room. The hallways were shadowed, empty corridors illuminated only by emergency lights casting eerie, elongated shadows against polished floors. I felt vulnerable, small beneath the high ceilings that loomed overhead like cathedral The voice stirred lazily in my head, amused. "Where are you going, Claire?" "To find answers," I whispered back defiantly. My bare feet were numb on the cold tiles, each step sending icy jolts up my legs. The nurse's station lay dark and quiet, bathed in dim computer screens' eerie blue glow. Trembling, I slipped inside, heart thundering as I began digging through files stacked neatly behind the desk. My fingers trembled, fumbling through folders, patient records filled with clinical jargon and bland medical terms. But beneath the carefully worded notes lay unsettling patterns. Patients reporting voices, paranoia, inexplicable deteriorations, mysterious disappearances labeled as transfers. My heart hammered as panic tightened my throat. "Interesting, isn't it?" the voice murmured gently, watching my frantic search like a predator amused by its prey. "You're not the first, Claire. Others have been here, just like you. They resisted too at first, but eventually they understood." "No," I whispered harshly, my eyes scanning faster now, desperately hoping to prove it wrong. Yet every new file painted the same chilling portrait. This wasn't recovery, it was containment. Containment for something dangerous and unknowable that had infected these patients. Infected me. Footsteps echoed suddenly behind me, and I spun around, heart racing painfully. Evelyn stood at the far end of the hallway, silhouetted against the dim emergency lights, her face unreadable in shadow. "Claire," she said evenly, stepping closer, "you shouldn't be here, it's late." My breath caught sharply, panic freezing me in place. The voice whispered soothingly, its warmth brushing lightly against my ear. "Careful now, she's dangerous." "Claire?" Evelyn moved closer slowly, her voice falsely kind. "You shouldn't be wandering alone. Come back to your room." I hesitated, frozen by fear and suspicion. Could I trust her? Or was the voice right? Did Evelyn harbor dark intentions, violent urges barely suppressed beneath her professional veneer? "Don't listen to her," the voice urged softly, urgently. "She knows what's inside you. She wants to silence us both." Evelyn stepped forward again, holding out a calming hand. "Claire, please, let me help you." The voice grew sharper now, insistent, pushing through my resistance. "Run." I bolted, feet slapping cold tiles, fear driving me blindly through darkened corridors. Alarms rang out suddenly, harsh and deafening, shattering the silence. Voices rose in confusion and urgency behind me. Tears blurred my vision as I stumbled, desperate and lost. Yet through it all, the voice stayed calmly beside me, whispering reassurance, promising safety, promising understanding. "Keep going, Claire. You're almost ready. Soon, you'll understand." I didn't know what terrified me more, the people chasing behind, or the tender, unshakable confidence in the voice that refused to let me go. My legs finally gave out beneath me, sending me sprawling painfully to the cold floor, gasping for breath. Hands gently but firmly lifted me from the ground. Dr. Lanning stood above me, his expression solemn, shadowed by grief. "Claire," he whispered sadly, his voice barely audible above my frantic gasps. "What have you done?" The voice in my head laughed softly, lovingly, as darkness swallowed me once more. "We'll talk again soon, Claire," it murmured warmly, promisingly, as consciousness slipped away, dragging me down once more into suffocating darkness. "When you're truly ready to understand." When I woke up, I was strapped to a bed. Soft restraints bound my wrists and ankles, tight enough to hold me still, but not enough to hurt. The room was different. Sterile white walls, harsh fluorescent lighting humming softly above me. A security camera blinked red in the corner. I wasn't in my recovery suite anymore. Dr. Lanning sat in a chair beside the bed, his expression carefully neutral. He held a clipboard, tapping a pen absently against its edge, deep in thought. I swallowed, my throat dry and raw. "You're awake," he said finally, his voice unreadable. I tugged at the restraints, my heart pounding. "Let me go." "You had an episode, Claire. You ran through the facility, you fell, we had to sedate you for your own safety." I shook my head violently, trying to suppress the rising panic. "No, that's not what happened. I saw the files, the other patients. They..." Dr. Lanning exhaled, rubbing his temples as if this conversation exhausted him. "Claire, listen to me. You've been experiencing auditory hallucinations, paranoia. The implant is designed to help, but in rare cases it can amplify intrusive thoughts instead. We believe that's what's happening to you." I went still, staring at him, my mind racing. He thought I was imagining this, that the voice was just my own subconscious twisting against me. "Claire," he continued carefully, like he was speaking to a frightened child, "do you remember what I told you before, that memory isn't always reliable? Sometimes, after trauma, the mind creates things to fill the gaps." "That's not what this is," I whispered. "The voice, it's real. It knows things I couldn't possibly..." "You think it's real," he corrected, gently but firmly. "But the mind is powerful, Claire. It can create entire worlds inside itself. Your brain is trying to cope with what happened to you." I wanted to believe him. I did. It would have been so much easier if this were just a malfunction, a side effect of trauma, something that could be treated with medication and therapy. But deep down, I knew the truth. The voice wasn't some fractured piece of me. It was something else, and it had been waiting for the right moment. A soft, knowing chuckle filled my ears, warm and intimate, sending a shudder through me. "Poor Dr. Lanning," the voice murmured. "He really believes he can save you." I squeezed my eyes shut, willing it away, but it only grew stronger, wrapping around me like invisible hands, pressing closer. "You should tell him, Claire," it purred. "Tell him about the things he doesn't want to admit, about the patient he lost last year, the one he blamed himself for, the one that still visits him in his dreams." My eyes snapped open. Dr. Lanning was watching me carefully, waiting for my response. My lips trembled. The voice sighed, almost disappointed. "You won't say it, will you? You still think you can be saved?" I licked my cracked lips. "What happened to the other patients, Doctor?" Something flickered behind his eyes, too fast for me to catch, but I knew I'd struck something raw. "Transfers," he said, automatically, but his voice lacked conviction. The voice hummed in amusement. "Liar." "You don't believe that?" I whispered. Dr. Lanning's jaw tightened. "Claire?" "Where did they go?" I pressed, voice rising. "The ones who heard the voice, the ones who started to understand." The voice exhaled warmly against my ear. "Oh, Claire. You're finally asking the right questions." Dr. Lanning stood abruptly, pressing the call button on the wall. "You're not well. We're going to adjust your medication." I knew then I wasn't going to leave this place. Not the way I was now. Not while the voice still had me in its grasp. And then, as if sensing my realization, it whispered something that sent ice-cold terror flooding through my veins. "You're almost ready." The days that followed blurred together. Medication dulled my senses, made my thoughts sluggish, but the voice remained. Patient, waiting, never truly leaving. Evelyn stopped coming to check on me. I overheard hushed conversations outside my door, the words muffled but the meaning clear. I was getting worse. The implant had failed. They were deciding what to do with me. "Claire," the voice murmured one night, as I lay staring at the ceiling, my limbs too heavy to move. "Would you like to see?" "See what?" I rasped. It chuckled, the sound vibrating deep in my skull. "The truth." Before I could respond, something shifted. The room around me darkened, not just in the way of lights dimming, but something deeper, something unnatural. Shadows bled from the corners of the room, stretching outward like creeping fingers. The air grew thick, dense, pressing against my skin, my lungs, and then I wasn't in the facility anymore. I was somewhere else, somewhere vast and endless and wrong. Cold, empty water stretched infinitely beneath me, deep and black, shifting in slow, pulsing waves. A distant humming filled the air, not mechanical, but organic, something vast breathing in the abyss below. And then I saw them, figures, dozens of them, floating just beneath the surface. Their eyes were open, staring blindly upward, their lips moving in silent conversation. Their skin was pale, almost translucent, their bodies eerily still despite the gentle undulation of the water around them. I recognized their faces, the other patients, the ones who had vanished. They hadn't been transferred, they had been taken. Something loomed in the water below them, too massive to comprehend, its shape obscured by the shifting darkness. But I felt it watching me, waiting. A hand broke the surface, my own, and suddenly I was back, gasping, my body shuddering violently against the restraints. I jolted upright, my heart hammering like a trapped animal in my chest. The voice, no, it was laughing, softly now, filled with satisfaction. You saw it, didn't you? Tears burned hot trails down my cheeks. What are you? The restraints snapped open. I hadn't moved. The door to my room unlocked with a slow, echoing click. I knew then that I had a choice. I could leave, walk out into the unknown, into the thing that had claimed all those before me, or I could stay, strapped to this bed, waiting for them to make me disappear. Neither option felt like survival. The voice was right. I wasn't Claire anymore. Not entirely. And I realized as I stood unsteadily, the door yawning open before me, that it had never been waiting for me to be ready to hear it. It had been waiting for me to be ready to obey. The breath ghosted across my ear, warm, patient, loving. "Come now, Claire," it whispered, and I stepped forward into the dark.